Is the Buffalo Bills defense more talented in 2024? How can it be better in 2024? We're exploring that today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, folks, welcome in. Yesterday on the podcast, I examined the Buffalo Bills offense, and I asked myself the question, is it more talented, and how can it be better in 2024? We're going to do the same thing today for the defensive side of the football. We're also going to lump in the specialists today on this podcast, keeping in mind that the Buffalo Bills mandatory minicamp kicks off on Tuesday. It is supposed to run for 3 days, but Sean McDermott always cancels the last day. I'm sure that'll be the case again this time. And so the rest of this week will be focused on OTAs. And then if, of course, they do cancel the Thursday practice like they typically do, I'll have something else cooked up for you on Friday, and I'm very excited about that. So be sure to make sure that you are subscribed. But let's get into it. I want to talk about each position group, and I want to consider who's returning, who's gone, who's new, is it more talented, and how can it be better? I think this is a little bit of a different conversation today compared to yesterday. But let's do it. We'll start at defensive tackle, where the Buffalo Bills return Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. And that's it. They said goodbye to Tim Settle, Jordan Phillips, Poona Ford, and Linval Joseph. And folks, I'm excited to no longer have Tim Settle and Jordan Phillips as part of this mix. I think they've been very disappointing depth players for this team. You've welcomed now veterans Austin Johnson and Deshaun Williams, and a third-round draft pick in Dwayne Carter out of Duke. Is this group more talented? Is it better? Yes. Yes, it is. And I think it's as simple as this. I think that Austin Johnson and Deshaun Williams are better players than Tim Settle and Jordan Phillips. And that excites me because I don't think there's a lot of positions that we're going to look at on this defense and say year over year the talent is better. Defensive tackle is kind of the spot where you say, yeah, I think it is. So outside of it just being better players top to bottom, how can it be better in 2024? Of course, improved depth, but then a full season of Daquan Jones is going to be big. He missed a massive chunk of the season, and he was off to an unbelievable start. Whether that was rushing the passer or defending the run, Daquan Jones was off to a hot start, and then you missed him for a while. Came back and played pretty well for the last few games in the playoffs, but obviously you love to have 17 games plus the playoffs out of Daquan Jones. Now, here's the deal with Daquan Jones. He's been a really durable player throughout his entire career, but in 2022, it was the late season injury that kept him out of that Bengals game. And then, of course, he missed some time this year. So hopefully the injury fortune that existed throughout his entire career until the last two seasons can be restored. I think you also look at Ed Oliver as a player who continues his ascension. The guy's coming off his best season. I'm not going to sit here and say he's capped. Hopefully he can be even better in 2024, keeping in mind he's going to benefit from playing alongside Daquan Jones for an entire season. Those guys, when they're on the field together, it's a really good pair. They play off each other extremely well. Well, now in 2024, you're primed to get more of that, in addition to better players behind them, bringing in an Austin Johnson, who I think gives the Bills legitimate depth as a run-stopping A-gap defender. And Deshaun Williams, who I think people are sleeping on. I think he's got good tape. I think he's athletic. And I think as a guy who's played mostly as like a 4-eye or a 5-tech in an odd front defense, he's going to really be pretty effective getting a chance to play up the field as a 3-tech. And then, of course, Dwayne Carter. I think it's a better group. I'm excited about that. Let's shift over to the defensive end position. The Bills are returning Greg Rousseau, Von Miller, A.J. Epenesa, and Kingsley Jonathan. They said goodbye to Leonard Floyd and Shaq Lawson, and they welcomed in Dwan Smoot, veteran, a rookie in Javon Solomon, and Casey Toohill. And I think Casey Toohill, with the arrival of Smoot and Solomon since he signed in Buffalo, I think Toohill is going to need some injuries to make this team. Is this group better? No. I don't think you can honestly look at losing Leonard Floyd, who led your team in sacks last year, and replacing that with Dwan Smoot, Javon Solomon, and Casey Toohill and have any reasonable case to say that it's a better group. Now, how can it be better? Well, I think there's a path, and that's where it's exciting. I think, first of all, a healthy Greg Rousseau, the guy played with a broken bone in his foot for every game beyond week 4. That was something that was pretty prohibitive because he was off to an awesome start after a great second season. A.J. Epenesa thriving with more volume. That guy was off to a great start up until the Kansas City game where he had the rib injury. A.J. Epenesa was playing at a high level. Splash plays, super effective as a pass rusher. Now that he's back on a 2-year deal, how does he perform with more opportunity? He's kind of gotten better and better every year of his career. I'm not sure he's capped. Another path for this edge group being more effective in 2024 is Von Miller. Von Miller was, for the most part, a disaster in 2023. Now, I think it comes with plenty of caution, being mindful of a 35-year-old that really struggled to kind of work back from that ACL tear. It's hard for me to really pin down what to expect from Von Miller, but you like to think he's going to be more effective, even if he's not vintage Von Miller or even the Von Miller we saw in 2022. So his contribution should be better. I do think that Dwan Smoot upgrades Shaq Lawson, and you guys kind of know that I've been a bit of a fan of Shaq Lawson for just being a fundamentally sound player. I think Dwayne Smoot is every bit of that, plus a little bit more juice as a pass rusher. And I think you'd love to get some bonus production. And when I say bonus production, I think one of Javon Solomon, Kingsley Jonathan, or Casey Toohill comes in and provides some value as a sub-package pass rusher. I think the guy that's most likely to be that is Javon Solomon. As a very effective college rusher, adds some flexibility and some good hand usage. I think there's a lot of upside there. With Kingsley Jonathan, I'm not sure that's going to be the case. I know he's very athletic. I know he's had some flashes, but even going back to his time at Syracuse, after being a full-time starter, the next year he's kind of a part-time player. He's never really been that guy. And then Casey Toohill, he's a try-hard guy. You love the motor. He plays 100 miles an hour all the time. Just not super effective based on the tape I studied at Washington. So I think if you're counting on or hoping for bonus production, the guy I'd be staring down is Javon Solomon. So no, I don't think it's a better group, but certainly a path to be effective and maybe even take a step, but there's some things that have to happen there for that to happen. All right, let's talk linebackers and cornerbacks on the other side of it. So be sure to stick with me. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, and you can bet on all of it over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 that you can use on everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Plus, they have some fun Bills props that you can check out. Right now, you can get the Bills at plus 160 to win the AFC East. That's the best odds of any team in the division. They have the win total for the Bills set at 10.5. So if you think they're going to go hit over or under that, there's an opportunity for you to get in on that action. Plus, Josh Allen, if you think this is the year he breaks through and is the NFL MVP, you can get that at plus 800 right now at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's talk about linebackers. The Bills are returning Terrel Bernard, Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, and Balen Spector. They say goodbye to Tyrel Dotson and Tyler Matakevich. They say hello to Nicholas Morrow, a veteran, Daquan Jones, a veteran, and a draft pick in Daquan Jones. Is it better? Probably not, but I think it's probably inconsequential. It's a deeper group, and Matt Milano returning is huge. So if you just go one for one and you can appreciate the player that Tyrel Dotson was and say, well, you swap out Tyrel Dotson for Nicholas Morrow, I'm not sure that's a better player, especially given the experience in the system that Tyrel Dotson had. I think Nicholas Morrow is a fine depth player, and I think Daquan Jones can be a decent depth player, and Daquan Jones as a draft pick is a player I'm pretty intrigued with. But no, I don't know that you can sit here and say for sure that it's better. I'm not sure that it's worse, because I think maybe you downgrade a tick from Dotson to Morrow, and that's mostly rooted in time on task in the system. But I think you do have more depth, and I think it's important. It's really important because the Bills linebacker depth was extremely stressed last year, so much so that A.J. Klein's being called out of a family vacation from retirement to have to start in the playoffs against Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, come on now. Tyrel Dotson's trying to play in that game with one arm. You didn't have Terrel Bernard. You didn't have Matt Milano. So it's probably a push in terms of if it's better, but obviously the path for it being better in 2024 is Matt Milano's return. The guy played four and a quarter games, and he's an elite player. And I think it's always fair for us to be a little bit nervous about what guys look like coming back from significant injury, especially after what we've lived through recently with Tre'Davious White's return, with Von Miller's return. Now, the next guy's Matt Milano. It'd be nice to go through an offseason not having to worry about a star player on defense and what they look like coming back, but the Bills haven't had that type of injury luck the last couple of seasons. Matt Milano coming back and being Matt Milano is monumental for not just the linebackers, not just the defense, but for this team. So I think that's where you start the conversation. Then, of course, Terrel Bernard, who was terrific in his sophomore season, certainly an ascending young player. I think he'll be even better in 2024, especially with that opportunity to play next to next to Matt Milano for an entire season. I think that's going to be huge. And so that's your primary path. But then I think you do look at your depth, and it's more experienced. And whether that's young guys in Dorian Williams and Balen Spector having another season under their belt, or adding some experienced veterans in Nicholas Morrow and Daquan Jones, I think your path to having top to bottom improved linebacker play is pretty straightforward. Let's go to cornerback. The Bills are returning Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford, Kaiir Elam, and Taron Johnson. They say goodbye to Dane Jackson and trade Tre'Davious White. And they don't really add much. I think the only real addition here has been Daquan Hardy, late round draft pick out of Penn State that provides depth in the slot and some punt return upside. Is the group better? No. You're not going to sit here and say that subtracting a quality depth player in Dane Jackson and Trey White, and I know that's kind of hard to reconcile what Trey White is for the Bills of late, but I mean, it's very simple. Dane Jackson plus Trey White is not greater than, or is not less than Daquan Hardy. It's that simple. But again, how can it be better despite not having better players? Well, Christian Benford, I think him continuing his development in year 3. I did an entire podcast on him last week. It turned out pretty well. Got some great feedback on that. If you want to know the type of player that Christian Benford is and what he's done and what the future holds for him, check out that episode from last week. Rasul Douglas being part of this mix for an entire cycle is going to be important, as opposed to being welcomed in midway through the season. Obviously, he was extremely effective after coming over in the trade from Green Bay. He'll be positioned quite well to be a very stable player as part of this mix. And I think the reality is, while you do lose Dane Jackson and Tre'Davious White, I think what Rasul Douglas can give this team is greater than either one of those two players. I think staying healthy is probably the biggest thing at corner. The last several years, the Bills have had a lot of injuries at the cornerback position. And that's why Dane Jackson's had to play so much. I mean, look at this group. Trey White, Dane Jackson, Christian Benford, Kaiir Elam. They all had to play a lot, right? And that's because there's been so many injuries at corner. Be huge if the Bills can stay healthy at that spot. And then from there, I think it's about Jamarcus Ingram, him coming in and locking down that CB4 spot. Right now, he's got a real clear path to be the CB4. He's been around a couple of years. We've seen players kind of on this path, practice squad, kind of challenge for the roster and then eventually make the roster. I think Jamarcus Ingram is in line to do that, kind of following in the Cam Lewis path. And then I do think Daquan Hardy is a player that just really intrigues me. I thought his tape at Penn State was really solid as a slot corner, and then there's the return element that he provides. I think there's a chance he could provide more depth than the Bills have had behind Taron Johnson, who occasionally has to miss a little bit of time, and you know it every time he's gone because the Bills will bring in Cam Lewis or they bring in Saron Neal, and you can feel the drop-off right away. Maybe Daquan Hardy can actually be an upgrade to the depth when it comes to the slot corner position. All right, so we got to get to safety. I also want to talk about the specialists on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with me. All right, folks, let's talk safety and specialists. At safety, the Bills are bringing back Taylor Rapp, Damar Hamlin, and Cam Lewis. They say goodbye to Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. They welcome in veteran Mike Edwards, second-round draft pick in Cole Bishop, and another veteran in D. Delaney. Is the group better? Probably not, right? I don't think you can look at saying goodbye to Poyer and Hyde and replacing them with Mike Edwards, Cole Bishop, and D. Delaney and feel confident that you have a better group. I mean, you lost a lot of experience. You lost a lot of leadership in those two players, even if Poyer and Hyde haven't really been themselves, particularly in 2023, but really the last 2 years out of Micah Hyde. So how can the Bills' safety play be better in 2024? Well, I think you start that with fresh legs. You could tell that Hyde and Poyer have lost a step, right? When they have to turn and run, when they have to carry routes and man coverage, when they have to come down and make a play in space, it's not as clean as it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. So fresh legs, I think, is where you start the conversation. I'm looking at Taylor Rapp as a player that I'm hopeful finds some comfort. I've been I was a big champion for Taylor Rapp coming over from the Rams and what I thought he could be. And then I just don't think he played that well last year. I do think he played his best football down the stretch later in the season, which is encouraging. And the fact that Sean McDermott, who I think is a safety guru, spent a year with Taylor Rapp and said, yeah, I want to sign that guy for 3 more seasons. So I think he'll be more effective. I'm pretty hopeful on Mike Edwards. I think I've watched a lot of Mike Edwards, and I think he's just a really good player. And whether that's at Tampa or with Kansas City, the guy can take away the ball. He can line up in a bunch of different spots. He tackles, understands angles. He's a good player. I think he can really help the Bills. And then Cole Bishop's kind of your X factor here, where I don't know when he enters the lineup, if he's a week 1 starter or if the Bills do some sub-package stuff where they bring in a third safety and how he factors into that. I'm not sure this year what he does, but it's a pretty high investment in the safety. And obviously he's a big part of what the future of this group looks like. So, yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow not having Poyer and Hyde. No doubt about it. You lose a lot of intangibles there. But maybe the fresh legs, some youth helps you out here. Plus, of course, Hyde and the injuries that he's faced and even Poyer himself and him having to play out of position last year. I'm intrigued here. It's not like – I think that's the thing about a lot of the transition that the Bills had, whether it's Steph Diggs or Poyer and Hyde or Tre'Davious White. Those are all good players. But you're not moving on from like the best version of those guys. You're not moving on from 2020 Diggs. You're not moving on from the elite pair of Poyer and Hyde for so long. You're not moving away from early career Trey White, right? That's not who those players are at this point. And I think that's such a big part of talking about this transition and doing so with the proper context. Yeah, on paper, wow, yeah, those are great players. Yeah, what are they now? You didn't move away from them after the 2020 season. This is after the 2023 season. I do want to touch on specialists real quick. The Bills return. When I say specialist, I mean kicker, punter, long snapper. So the Bills move on from nobody. They bring back Tyler Bass and Sam Martin. And they also have Jack Browning, this undrafted free agent punter out of San Diego State. So how is it better talent-wise? Well, no, I mean, I don't think so. It's the same people plus a UDFA punter. But there's a path for it being better. First of all, Tyler Bass, let's hope that 2023 was just a blip in the radar, just his worst season of his career. So, number one, Tyler Bass comes in and reminds us why the Bills gave him a contract extension and made him a $5 million a year kicker. That's huge. I think he should be better this season, but one thing about kickers is that they're good until they're not. You hear a lot about the mental fortitude and resiliency of Tyler Bass. We need to see that in terms of practical application in 2024. He's got to earn back everyone's confidence. One kick at a time, put it through the pipes. Then the other side of this is the punter position where Sam Martin's back. And I think Sam Martin's a fine punter. I don't know that he's a great punter. He's fine. But he's got some real competition here in Jack Browning, who had better numbers at San Diego State than Matt Ariza, the punt god. Better numbers than Jack Browning. And we heard some reports last week that Jack Browning was holding for Tyler Bass in practice, which is a big deal. You're not going to introduce a new holder and a new mechanics of a field goal operation if that guy doesn't have a legitimate chance. And last year, the Bills had no competition for Sam Martin and Tyler Bass. None. This year they do. Jack Browning's in this mix. And I'm very interested to see if he can unseat Sam Martin, and if he does, if he can be better. Because I don't think the Bills have had quality punting with any level of consistency in a very long time. Maybe Jack Browning can be that guy. Even Sam Martin, I think Sam Martin has stabilized the position to an extent, but he's still average to below average. I believe a lot in field position, and punters need to be reliable, and you got a chance to pin a team deep, you got to pin them deep. You have a chance to flip the field, you got to flip the field. You can't have line drives, right? There's fundamentals to punting that helps you win football games, and the Bills really haven't had that element with any level of consistency in a very, very long time. Maybe Jack Browning can be that guy. Again, Sam Martin, a lot better than Cole Schmidt. Was that his name? Colton Schmidt? Colton Schmidt. Yeah, that guy. Corey Bojorquez. Corey Bojorquez kind of turned it around. He's been a good punter, but not for the Bills. Kind of had just a revolving door there. Maybe Jack Browning can be that guy. All right, folks, so there you have it. Looking at the Bills' defense, the specialists, considering if it's more talented and how it can be better in 2024. We're talking OTAs the rest of the week. Plenty of information, I'm sure, coming out of One Bills Drive. We'll break it all down for you here on this podcast. We'll drop the episodes early in the afternoon. So today, you'll get another episode to recap OTAs Wednesday afternoon. Same type of deal. And then we'll see what happens with the Thursday practice. And like I said, I got some stuff planned. And that stuff being planned is a conversation with Bruce Nolan on Dalton Kincaid. So it's going to be really good. That'll either come on Friday or Monday. So don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. We would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I'll catch up with you again real soon.